Boom. Hello, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It is me, Duke CT, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of fun review here. And I got some guests here talking about the latest DCU. Is it the DCU? I don't know. The new birth of the DCU with Creature Commandos. We're going to be reviewing that with some guests of mine. I have JC Alexander. So, say hello.
Hey, what up, everybody?
And Greg Kuma, once upon a time was LC. So say what's up.
Hey everyone, it's good to be back on a microphone. Gonna be fun. I'm a DC nerd, so this is gonna be great for me.
Well, anyway, let's talk about this because I mean, it's the entire DC on film has been, as you would say, well, to be nice, a dumpster fire of bad continuities, some good movies overall, but overall it just was disconnected, rushed into the whole thing. I mean, they had something with Man of Steel. Even though I enjoyed Batman and Superman, it was a complete decisive stuff, and people didn't really like how it was. They kicked out Zack Snyder, and because he was doing some personal stuff. Then he was doing. Then they brought in Joss Whedon to tighten up Justice League, and that failed. And then after that, they brought in many other people. They brought in Jeff Johns. They brought in, all this other stuff. Everything else here. Then they finally settled on someone about having the new DC on film, James Gunn, and
Woo!
And and it's been a very interesting run so far. As we now have it was the Suicide Squad at first, and then you had the Peacemaker show, which was surprisingly good, and John Cena proved that he actually can be funny and such. And now we have a brand new cartoon series, the first of probably we recently got a season 2 of it. It is Creature Commandos, and it is honestly a surprisingly interesting and fun show. And I wanted to do a quick review of it, and watching it, the good, the bad, and the monster and such. So I want to hear y'all your first thoughts of the show and everything else, and what are your opinions about it?
Well, I could say that I was definitely looking forward to it when I heard about it. I didn't like that when it came out because it made no sense to come out during the time of December when I would think this would be more of a a Halloween kind of show. So that threw me off, but glad it did because it's been one of the best shows on television right now. I'm loving what James Gunn is doing to the universe. Taking what he needs, leaving the rest. He's building a great freaking continuity here. I will say this, that the transitions between animation and live are so seamless. And I don't know if anybody actually noticed that. Let's see. I had a note here, actually. It was in the very opening scene of the first episode. It's literally seamlessly the image of the, B-Re Correctional Center?
Yeah, Bel Rev, I believe.
Yeah. Looking at it from the scene from Suicide Squad, and then looking at the scene in animation, it is spot on. There's it's seamless almost. It's amazing that they're showing that kind of detail.
JC, what are your first thoughts about it?
Well, to be perfectly honest here, I don't really know that much about the Creature Commandos. I'm a bit of a casual DC fan. I grew up with Batman, the animated series, Justice League, all that jam. I can't really say that I was a big fan of the DC movies. I personally preferred Marvel, even though I didn't know anything about Marvel. But I definitely feel that DC is definitely in good hands, if for no other reason that the person whose hands it's in is going to be James Gunn. And I definitely feel that that definitely gives me a lot of hope and optimism for this. Mainly because, well, I think he did a good job with the Guardian of the Galaxy movies, and I hear he did a good job with the Suicide Squad movie. So I definitely feel that he definitely proved himself with Creature Commandos of doing something pretty good, and that gives me a little bit of a hope that he's definitely going to do a good job with the Superman movie. Now, speaking of James Gunn, I don't think it should come to any surprise. Am I the only one who noticed that, James Gunn looks an awful lot like Rick Flag Sr. in the cartoon series? Because I think there's like a similarity there. And I know there's a lot of people out there who would probably go out and accuse him of trying to put a self-insert of himself into this show. But in my personal opinion, if you started your career directing schlocky, low-budget grindhouse flicks before being picked up by major movie studios to direct big-budget films, which eventually led you to directing a comic book film that many thought was going to flop, but not only did it succeed, but it succeeded twice, to the point where a rival studio decided to make their own knockoff version, only to fail, and then later hire you on to make a good version of that film and succeed, which you did because the studio you previously worked at fired you over internet drama that proved to be a real nothing burger, and then they realized they'd ungoofed and brought you back on board to end your superhero trilogy with a bang, before eventually returning to the other guys just to helm their superhero franchise, which will hopefully include a good Superman film. Well, I think you've earned the right to inject a self-insert Gary Stu of yourself into your latest project because, yeah, James Gunn is the GOAT. So, yeah, and undoubtedly, Creature Commandos, I know nothing about the franchise, but, it definitely has the James Gunn touch to it. There's a lot of magic to the characters. There's a lot of witty banter and a lot of pretty cool needle drops. So if you know anything about James Gunn, those are two things that he does best. Having a bunch of mischief characters, bunch of misfit characters coming together to basically banter with one another, and all the while you have a bunch of very epic needle drops. Yeah, it's a good show. I've definitely been impressed, and I have no idea if there's a season 2, but I'm definitely looking forward to a season 2.
Oh yeah, it's actually been confirmed not only by Gunn but other people saying that there is a season 2 coming the way. And personally, I think he always has self-insert. He in the intro, which was actually really good. I actually liked the TV intro of the show. He has him basically sitting out writing the thing for James Gunn, writing the episodes and such. And the one thing I really did like about the show is the animation. I really thought the animation was fits the show, the characters, everyone really looked at the show. You really felt like, man, this is really good anime stuff. The way they designed the characters, the way the voice acting was really good. I don't know who was their director, the voice acting director, because it felt like they really understood the characters. They really understood how these the people hear. So, again, I think that I think we have to give a shout out to say Alan Tonic, Zoe Chow, David Harbour, Frank Grillo, Inia Verma, and Sean Gunn. They did done a great job of voicing these characters, and really
they did.
Just knocked it out of the park, and how they really did that.
Yeah, and I could say go back to the self-referencing in the intro. I agree. There's two things, like him in the intro, and yes, that one guy clearly looks like James Gunn. Even though he does look a lot, he can easily be played by the voice actor, because that's the whole idea, is to keep the transition going. So voice actors in shows play him live action, etc. But a fun little thing about that self-reference in the very beginning of every episode, one, James Gunn said that wasn't him, that was his animation team that did that. He didn't even know they did it.
Yeah,
but
okay.
A fun little bit of trivia in there is, if you actually still frame on the computer James Gunn is typing, the script he's typing every episode, it's the final lines from every single episode. Except for episode 4, where I believe they just reused the last one, but let's face it, that one was such a heartbreaking, touching thing, like, you didn't want to spoil it.
Absolutely, yeah. I need to look back at that. I've just did a rewatch of the series except the final episode. I definitely need to look back, and now that you mentioned it, I'll definitely have to look back and try to find those Easter eggs. That sounds pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, the Easter eggs are amazing. I'm the Easter egg hunter. If you want somebody on a show that's gonna research the little trivias, I'm the best guy. Another great thing I like to bring up though is the new DCU logo with Superman. Oh, the fact they're using the original Joe Shuster's design from Action Common 1. Oh, just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a beautiful thing. And speaking of that, this was the first debut of Superman in animated form in that whole ghastly vision, by the way.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's and I looked at that type of stuff, and looking at the whole show, I really the one thing I really did like about the show was they didn't hold back on the gore. They didn't hold back on it, and it's the one thing I think the show was the one thing they really did well to me, and I saw this was the action scenes. I think they really showed, for the most part, the Bride, GI Robot, and I believe Dr. Phosphorus really did a good job. They really did a good job of showing it, and supposedly they used the Kirby Crackle, which was an old comic book thing where they put like John Kirby.
Oh, you brought the Kirby Crackle up. That was actually in my notes. Yeah. God, I can never remember his name. Dr. Skeleton. Phosphorus. I always call him Dr. Skeleton. I give stupid names to every character, by the way, just for my own entertainment, and also the fact I'm dyslexic, I have ADHD, and I don't have time to remember anybody's names. So, fair warning, I'm going to have a lot of nicknames throughout this. But, yeah, the fact that they, on his fire effect, they used the Kirby Crackle, oh, that geeked me out.
Oh, yeah, and, it's just that when you look at Dr. Phosphorus, I'm like, by the way, I do like the fact that this was a person who was created, I think Batman, I think an old Batman villain, and not only that, I do like they use the deep cuts. James Gunn used a lot of deep cuts for these shows, and one I did like to see was after, you had like I believe the lawyer of I think Weasel. I think who was the lawyer? I think it was an old comic actually. An old comic.
She's a reference to an old comic. I'm not sure, or her name is referenced from an old comic. I'm not sure what it is, and unfortunately, I don't have any notes up in my trivia right now for that.
Oh yeah, and I think let me see if I can find the. Let's see. I think it was Elizabeth Bates. It's a Betty Bates, Lady at Law from Hit Comics #4 from 1940. It was an old comic, and that was bought by DC years ago, like in the old days. A tough criminal defense attorney in the 1940s who used unconventional and dubious legal methods to defend her clients. And she was notably one of the only female attorneys practicing at the time, fictionally. So this could be, a shout out to her. And honestly, I'm like, seriously, I'm surprised there's not going to be some show about that, because it was actually Quality Comics. DC bought them, actually. I wouldn't be surprised someone out there, Warner's or something like, say, or James Gunn or whatever, probably get a show like that up, because lawyer shows last forever. in those things. So
as long as people are stupid enough to break laws, they will.
Yes, and I'm thinking something like this you could do. I truly think you could have a Betty Bates show, be it animated or maybe live action. You could do that, but it has to be. I think people, you could you have to have a mix of regular people and have like the fantastical as well. I think you could do that as well and be something interesting. Because I think you could do something like that, serious but yet hilarious type of way. But overall, I really did like the guest stuff there, because a lot of things looked. I mean, especially you have Clayface, who made that huge thing. But we'll get to the story in a second. But what do you before we get into the stories and everything else? What did surprise you most about the series? What was the one thing that really surprised you about it?
Well, for me, it's not necessarily surprising because James Gunn is just so good at this, but what really surprises me is that this is a series that can be both, dramatic and serious and mature and adult and everything, but it also has a lot of sensitive spots as well. I mean, you can have an episode where characters are doing raunchy things and making innuendo and all that stuff, and you can have a bunch of action scenes with, blood and gore and everything, but at the heart of it, there is a lot of heart to these episodes. Pretty much every single episode basically focuses on the backstory of each of these characters. And James Gunn and the writers who are writing these episodes, they do a good job of showing that these are not just joke characters, taking characters which other creators would probably have treated as jokes and giving them heart and depth, especially the fourth episode. James Gunn said that episode was the saddest one that he ever wrote. Yeah, he was not lying about that. Yeah,
I can agree with you on that one. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but when it came down to episode 4, oh boy, do I have stories for that one.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and, mm-hmm. It was the one thing I was surprised at was the one thing I really is the way of connecting to these characters, and it just felt like wow, I really did like the Bride and G.I. Robot, and not only that. But also, I think Rick Flag Sr., who is going to be not just in this, but he's going to be in Superman, but also in Peacemaker Season 2. So that's going to be a fun type of, he's going to
Daddy's coming to hurt his... Daddy's coming for revenge.
Oh, yes. And also, I can't wait to see more Dr. Phosphorus, because he is, man, not just as destructive and such, but I'm like, man, he's very, I just like the sarcasm and everything else. He felt like, that type of villain who just felt like he's fun to be like. He has a horrible backstory, but man, he's like one of those Batman villains. Like he's just fun to be like, easy to take down, but also doesn't have to be like, with the episode based on, you're like, he has some fun. He's a psychopathic person, but at least he knows how to dance and have some fun.
Yeah, and I would say when it comes down to the Doc dancing like that, very bold going into that style. I mean, we all know what happened with I'm pretty sure that might have been a shot at the Joker in the original Justice League, because that's all I could think of. Like, wow, they are really sticking it to that Joker, making the character almost the same. Yeah. But with a character that actually makes sense to act like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's going back to my point about how this manages to balance drama with comedy and heart and all of that very well. Speaking of Snyder, I ran across a certain post on Blue Sky. Somebody was just kind of complaining about, how people are basically giving James Gunn a pass for things that would have otherwise been criticized by Zack Snyder. And their main point of complaint was, well, Zack Snyder had a dark vision where Superman ended up dying and everything, but, people hated him for that. But, James Gunn can basically have something like that and, he gets away with it. Well, the reason why I think it works with James Gunn, what James Gunn is doing as opposed to Snyder, is that, Snyder's work is mostly dark and bleak pretty much throughout. So if you have something dark and bleak within it, it just doesn't come across as strong because everything else about his movies are kind of dark and bleak and just gritty and everything. Whereas James Gunn with Creature Commandos, yeah, I mean, there's some dark moments there, but it's kind of balanced out by the fact that the overall tone is pretty much lighthearted. It is a comedy. It is an adult comedy show, so there's going to be a lot of adult comedy to basically weigh out the darker moments, so that when those moments come along, they just kind of feel stronger. It's sort of like the bed of nails thing. If you sit on a bed of nails, you don't really feel any of them pricking against you because your weight is evenly distributed. But you basically sit on a single nail, you're going to feel that because, it's a little bit more poignant. There's one of them, that really sticks out. So that's kind of the same thing with what James Gunn is doing here is that, overall his body of work is lighthearted, but it has its sorrowful moments, it has its dark moments, and when those happen, they really punch hard. Whereas with Zack Snyder and pretty much most of his filmography is like everything is just dark and bleak and serious. So, the dark moments that are supposed to be even darker and serious don't really stand out as much. And I think that's pretty much my answer to why can James Gunn do this, but Zack Snyder can't, is because James Gunn does it just much better,
It always comes down to context and aesthetic. Context and aesthetic, like that's the one thing I don't like about Zack Snyder's films. It's just meant to be. It feels like it's supposed to be artsy when it's not when this subject shouldn't be artsy. And I think that's where James Gunn just knows how to make a fun film.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I think that's something. As someone who is a fan, I do like the style, what he was trying to do, what he was trying to make, like Gods Among Us and such of Zack Snyder. But I think what he was doing, I think he handled it a bit wrong and such. He should have had a little more levity and more brightness and colors and such, just to you can have dark stuff here. But at the end of the day, show the joy, show the fun, and show all this type of stuff in the superhero thing here. And speaking of the joy and the fun of the superhero stuff here, let's finally get into the episodes and the story of Creature Commandos, because it pretty much starts off as, Task Force M. Because, after everything that happened during Peacemaker, he's like, okay, Amanda Waller's daughter ratted her out, and now they're like, okay, now we just start with we can't do it with humans, but we can do it with monsters, which is pretty nice to think about it, like little side through and everything else. So
and
now.
And it's so appropriate that a government official would keep their job after a huge controversy like that, and just was basically told, no, don't do that again.
I don't worry, don't do that again.
Don't worry, it's fine. Just don't do it again, and we won't bring it up in your review next month.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the most. If that ain't government, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and I just wonder what's going to be the Waller TV show going to be like, though. So that's going to be very interesting.
I don't know, but if she doesn't have a sidekick monkey, I am not watching it. I'm just saying, Waller and a sidekick talking monkey is going to be the show for me. If they don't make it, I ain't watching it.
Oh, so you meant a Detective Chimp, which actually is
yes, Wallace and Detective Chimp. It's the best idea for the character. If James Gunn makes this, I'm telling you, I'm suing him for stealing my idea.
But yeah, it's just what they did, and they said, okay, all right, now we gotta deal with the go over Palokistan, which is actually something in DC, which is, by the way, this is no James Gunn is actually a fan. He's using these lands that no DC only back
the deep dives
and 40s that no one cares about.
Deep dives.
Not even Wikipedia has the whole thing of Palokistan and everything else. So it was okay, we got this Cersei who's here, who's supposedly running the Amazon stuff. So we don't have Wonder Woman yet in this universe. But yeah, it's just Cersei's here. So she's okay, since Congress shut down Task Force X, so she went to say, let's go to non-human stuff. Let's get Frankenstein's bride, Dr. Phosphorus, the skeleton dude, robot that that kills Nazis, Weasel, and you have Nina Mersky, aka she's just the fish lady.
Pretty much Shape of Water, but reverse gendered.
Exactly. So yeah, they all have to go into this place here, Yeah, so they have to protect the princess from Cersei. Which, by the way, the one thing I do like about the whole stuff here and the build up is we haven't talked about this one character yet, Eric Frankenstein. Who was actually leader of in DC Comics, was a part of a group called Agents of Shade. A very, very small type of stuff here, and it's sadly, that character in the comics is very different. This is very different to this one because he's basically a very dangerous, like a dangerous simp. That's what he is.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Eric Frankenstein, though? What you first saw him, or what the character? What do you thought about him?
Well, as an old school Universal horror fan, it's like anytime I get a reference to Dracula or Frankenstein, any of the Universal monsters, I'm in love. And to go back to what you're saying about the creature in water, Gill Girl. I will tell you right now, I love how you went there. I originally went towards Creature in the Black Lagoon as a gender swap for her. I'm kind of feeling like that's where her design came from.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like it's just that the character though was like he has a good side to him and he knows how to fight, but man, he's just like so desperate for this one person who just like over like 200 years said no. It's like at one point,
that bro. That bro just doesn't take no for an answer. That guy is simping hard. I'm telling you, sometimes it just takes that one girl to make the most genius guy in the world. A good girl will destroy him. And it just shows, like, a guy as soon as he gets a girl he's infatuated with, basically everything else in the world doesn't matter. But I do love it staying so true to the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein story, where, like, the monster was obsessed with having a bride, and all those nice deep cut references to it is great.
I don't know. The entire dynamic of him sort of reminds me of this little bit of a visual gag in Overly Sarcastic Productions and their review of Frankenstein. And they're talking about how, Dr. Frankenstein was considering, creating a mate for Frankenstein, but he didn't think it was going to go over well. And one of the visual gags up there is Frankenstein, if the ride were to have been created for him and she were to reject him, he was like, oh no, this person who was created for me won't reciprocate my love. I've been friend zoned. And the female Frankenstein's all like, oh no, this male character thinks he's owed love from me. I'm basically paraphrasing there, but yeah, that definitely pretty much sums up the dynamic between the bride and Frankenstein in this show to a T. I feel it's
toxic
just a
relationship. Sorry, I was gonna say a toxic relationship if there ever was one.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, and it is very I do like. By the way, I do like the friendship that the bride and Nina had with each other.
Oh yeah,
they were really good, and the connection was there. I did like them in the first and second episodes. Really, I really did like, the way they introduced the characters, and not just that, but also the fight between the bride and Cersei. Like, wow, that was when I was like, okay, this series is something gonna be really good to look for. And the bride not only taking to Cersei, but also taking out her like simp troops or whatever, which is like, I was like, yeah, that was really good. And then at the end, I'm like, Cersei using her powers to turn the bride's arms into wacky inflatable tube men. I don't know.
Oh, on. Yeah.
And I was like, and then just both getting knocked out, and I love the comments like the bride, like said, Nia said, "Are you all right?" And Nia says, "Go fuck yourself," and just like passed out. And the bride's like, "Yeah, I like her." It was hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, going back to the whole simp army thing, yeah, that just makes way too much sense. I mean, like, you have Cersei here, who's like a sorceress from an island of Amazons, and if you're gonna basically trying to find an army in order to basically invade, obviously, what would be more ideal than a bunch of dude bros who totally want to go to this island filled with women, lesbians, everything. I was like, yeah, I think, yeah, but then again, if some hot Amazon said, yeah, I want to take over this island, would you basically, yeah, I would probably say as well. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm all for it, mistress. Yes, go, let's go. I can't exactly blame them, even though they are kind of pathetic, because of course they would be.
Yeah, and yeah, the action scenes are good, and the one thing I liked about all of that, the one thing I really loved about all of it was, you see, the way the flashbacks. It really showed the flashbacks, and the music. By the way, like I said, the music was really good. I think the music was like from Madonna Cafe really did that stuff, and you have like this Romani bands, all of this stuff here, just really Eastern European type of music that fits with the era they were in. So I was like, wow,
yeah,
really good. And also, I have to say, I did like the one thing I did like about this was the soldiers. By the way, I really liked the soldiers. Oh, they were like the soldiers.
Bro, armchair bro, freaking army. I loved it. As somebody who's been around a lot of countercultures in my life, I can honestly say that was so accurate.
Yeah, well, when you just see someone who is so out of time and such, and just, everything from American, like from the early mid 2000s just stopped, and like, oh dear. But it's cringe, but it's a good type of cringe. Like they're being earnest, and
it is.
Yeah.
If I could add in there, as somebody who's traveled a lot, I can tell you that's kind of what it's like when you go into other countries. Like, keep in mind, like other countries get information like 10, 20 years later. So, like, when you go to America, like if you go to Europe, a lot of times people are referencing things that are like 10, 20 years old because they know that from a movie or TV show they watched. And they don't, kind of like how we watch older, like, British shows or like older, like, Spanish shows, French shows, and like you kind of forget, like, oh wait, this was made 10 years ago, and and that's not what it's like anymore. It's just so accurate of a culture.
Was that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. And another thing I liked about it was, again, not just that, but the earnesty of it. The earnesty of the people here. And I think that's the one thing I think people really liked about the characters. And I think Princess Aliana, well, she was there at the first couple of episodes. I'm like, and then she just banged Rick Flag Sr. Just like, what? I was like, that was out of nowhere. And then one thing I liked about it was episode 3. It is like this, like, okay. I think it was Dr. Foster saying, don't worry, give him like 30 more seconds, and all that stuff. And then, oh wait, he might have more condition, but give it a minute. And this is after they
bro knows. The bro knows.
And after he had a fight with him. That is hilarious, though. It's just that weird type of thing. It's weird, and I just like the stuff there. And also, cheers to the Tin Man. Really good stuff, though. I do like the fact that it introduced like the Metal Men, which another old deep cut and everything. That's gonna be. I can't wait to see that, because I think James Gunn wanted to do the Metal Men for a long time, but now he does have it. So I think he's gonna probably. I think after Superman, that's gonna be the next film project he's gonna be worked on. It's probably gonna be the Metal Men. So
I hope so.
Yeah.
Anytime we can see more Nazis getting killed on television, I'm happy with.
Oh yeah, and GI just by the way, I like the fact GI and Nina has that connection too, and they just
Oh yeah.
and they just like oh, let me go save her, and then boom, and they had that beautiful Nazi thing, and he killed them, and not only that, he killed all those by the way, here's something I don't get. I'm like, how the heck did GI robot get lost in? I'm like, this man's like a sentient AI built in the 40s. I thought he'd be at least in the Smithsonian or something. Like he's
it's. I honestly, honestly, I feel like his story is more symbolic of what soldiers go through all the time. They get trained, they're given one purpose, kill the enemy, and then as soon as they're done with their job, they get shipped back here, never deprogrammed, and then basically do something stupid because they just did what they were trained to do, and wind up rotting away in jail. I just looked at it as a beautiful symbolic of that soldier culture that happens in this country. As somebody who's been around a lot of the military my whole life, I can say, like, it is definitely accurate. That stuff does happen to soldiers.
Oh, yeah,
they come back and they come back, they deal with an issue the way they were trained to deal with an issue, but then because now your homeland, you can't do it that way. They end up getting thrown in jail for the rest of their lives. I'm not condoning murder in a real life. I'm saying in cartoon form, yes, if you're trained to kill Nazis, kill Nazis.
Oh, yes. And by the way, it's just weird about that. But, I was like, yeah, maybe someone must have dropped something. But, yeah, he was, given to, the Nazis and such. But, yeah, it's a weird thing. And not only that, but... it was like, man, and he got killed off by Cersei. I was like, dang it. I was like, oh, man. I was expecting him to be at least around a bit, but no.
I know. I could say when the Tin Man went into that after making the friend and everything. Oh, God, that's so heartbreaking. Mm. And I swear, when he walked in, and as soon as I saw that guy with the 88 on his neck, I went, oh, fuck me. This ain't ending well.
Oh boy, it's like, okay, you have this guy who buys a robot whose explicit directive is to kill Nazis, and you take him to a place which is essentially just a Nazi rally. It's one of those moments where you just want to go, well, what exactly were you expecting here, pal? It wasn't going to end well. It just wasn't.
Well, in all fairness, I mean, if you're stupid enough to be a neo-Nazi, I mean, you're obviously dumb enough to freaking not read the manual on the robot you just bought.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying these guys are idiots, but let's just say their common sense is not always in the highest priority.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And then you get the really emotional thing, chasing squirrels, because my gosh. I didn't think I could feel for Weasel, and I would do for Rocket Raccoon and such. But my gosh, they did it, Yeah, that was.
I'm just coming right out of the woodwork here, and I'm going to tell you, I cried. I cried. I was bawling eyes after I seen it. And I ended up having to go back, try to watch it again, just to make sure that I wasn't having a hallucination or something to what I just saw. And then I had to actually go get my wife, bring her in, and show it to her. Because I was like, this is the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen in cinema.
Yeah, it was so heartbreaking and sad. And, it's just, it was one of the most... really messed up parts about it is that they never cared about the kids. They just wanted to take down Weasel and everything.
Well, I think it's also it's great symbol. I'm going to go into symbolism a lot here because that's what I think a lot of these characters represent, and I definitely saw the Weasel one as perspective. As far as nobody was wrong there. They're just all dealing with a bad situation the way they know how. Weasel's trying to rip them out of there. And think about it. Put ourselves in those cops' perspective. You show up to a burning school. You see children down in the burning flames getting dragged by it doesn't even matter if it's Weasel. It's just an animal in general. And then what is your first instinct going to be? Oh shit, the animal is attacking the kids. You know,
Mhm.
I was just like, I can't side wrong with anybody. And I was put in any of those people's shoes, I would have had the same reactions as everybody else did, depending on what perception I was looking at the scene from.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was very heartbroken and such. But anyway, JC, what you thought of episode 4?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily, I wasn't the person who basically cried over it, but it was just so dramatically done. I will admit that while it wasn't a tearjerker for me, I definitely understand why it's a tearjerker for everyone else because, well, I mean, it is quite the tearjerker of a backstory here. I mean, it's exactly what Kuma here was basically saying. It was all just a matter of, misunderstanding. You want to fault the old guy with the gun and the cops and everything, but from like Kuma was saying, from their perspective, it did seem as though this creature was attacking the children, chasing them into the building, setting it on fire, and you have you see Weasel dragging one of the kids in the building. You think he's attacking them when he's really trying to save them. So I don't exactly blame the cops and the guy for jumping to conclusions because that's pretty much an easy conclusion to jump, which just kind of makes it all the more tragic. Though, correct me if I'm wrong. Did one of the cops end up shooting one of the kids, or am I just
No, so
misremembering?
I don't believe so. He shot Weasel, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of that's just kind of maybe I'm just kind of misremembering something there, maybe some sort of Mandela effect or something like that.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off again. I was just saying I don't believe so. I think it was more or less those kids would have lived if the cop didn't shoot Weasel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I think the cops were shooting Weasel in front of the
Mm-hmm.
kids and such, and it was heartbreaking. And I think it was the reason why that little blonde kid that Weasel remembers. That's why at the later episodes, really was like the flashbacks or what have you, connect trying to take the to save the princess and such later on, and it just when you look at when I saw it, I was like, again, really was a heartbreaking scene. It was very emotional stuff to that show, to everything, and gave Weasel a very needed death to his character, and someone that was just like, most people didn't really care for Weasel before this, because again, once upon a time, Weasel in the DC universe, who was just a anthropomorphic Weasel. He was just a costume killer at first, in the comics. But now they gave him as a, just a more emotion and everything. So, yeah, and I think that was one of the most important things they did for this character. And it's very interesting about all the stuff. They're the best episodes and such. I want to ask you a question. What was your favorite episode of the 7-episode series and such? Because I honestly, to me, I would say episode 4 is my favorite, and how they everything built up to it and everything. So, what is your favorite episode?
Well, for me, I would definitely say, while episode 4 is good, I think my personal favorite would have to be season 3, if no other reasons, in that we actually get to see the Nazi killing robot kill the Nazis and everything. And like I said, kind of a weird turn of events where he's actually getting picked up by a neo-Nazi, taken to a Nazi rally, and it's like again, what exactly were you expecting there? But then at the very end, basically where he's in, the other country and everything, and he's like, are these guys Nazis? And Rick Flake's like, yeah, they're Nazis, which if you really think about it, considering that they're the type of characters these this simp army is supposed to be, you're not exactly far off in that direction. I'm not saying that every guy who acts like that is going to be a Nazi, but there's a good freaking chance. So, but either way, Nazi robot got to kill Nazis. Mwah, good episode. that just good.
I was gonna say, for me, it's 4. It's definitely for the heart, the skill, the just everything's just beautifully done in that freaking show, in that episode. Any time that I can admit that somebody made me cry. Well, now technically James Gunn has made me cry twice in my life. I have to give him respect for that. The first time was in a bowling alley in New Jersey, but that's a whole other story. True story, though.
But yeah, it's the show really, but there were some I think that I honestly did like the one thing I did like about the show though was the flashbacks and how to connect with each monster and everything. And the best one I believe is episode 6 and Dr. Foster's. That one is amazing because it just showed the goriness and Rupert Thorne, how horrible he is. And you can see why, like, Dr. Phosphorus, formerly known as Alex Sartorius and such, he was happy, he had a family, all this type of stuff. And then he lost his family in most violent ways. And then next thing you know was turned into this, like, basically this, this radioactive skeleton. And it just takes out, not only kills all the people around him in very brutal and ways, he just took over his business. He said, you know what, screw it. He did. He took over it, had that great little dance, and then we had Batman show up, a very like a fake version of Batman. Decided, like, something right out of he's not like the skinny Batman in the Batman, and such. This one has, like, he's like how
he looked more like the original '90s animated series.
Yeah,
I know James Gunn did say that not all character models are final, and I believe he was hinting at Batman for that one. For as in for transitioning from animation to live, because I don't think they have an actor yet cast for Batman.
Well, they are working on it, so I think the Clayface movie, which they are doing, which probably is going to be, it's going to be cheap. Man, I think it's like $40 million budget, but it's going to be that type of thing. I think we're going to get a first peek of not just Batman, but I think Robin as well. I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to be out of nowhere. I don't know how they're going to surprise people with it because, the internet and such. But I think they're going to have, like, they're going to announce the Batman there. And it's going to be that type of situation. And, that's what it is. That's it's going to be. And but yeah, I really love that episode to show that type of, the gore and such, but just show the humanity of the monsters. And then he lost it, but then he still has a bit of it by leaving that family alone,
Yeah, not gonna lie, the episode 6, with episode 6, my favorite part of that was actually the storyline with the bride and Nina as they basically seek refuge in a female-run establishment, and I like that because it had a very poignant line that I thought was pretty good. They're hiding out, and the boss running the place is like, "Hey, have you ever?" She tells the bride, "Hey, have you considered this line of work?" And bride's like, "No, I don't. I have more self-respect for myself than you lot have." And the mistress basically just retorts with, "We use our bodies to give pleasure. You use your body to take life. It seems like not only do you not respect your own body, you don't respect the body of others." To which, obviously the bride just, rolls her eyes at that. I felt that was a pretty interesting line. And also the storyline there was actually pretty good, as it does show a little bit of depth to the bride and Nina as a character as well. So.
Oh, yeah, I think that was. And the one thing I liked about the character, the one thing I liked about the stuff was, Nina and them, again, the connection and everything, and the metahumans being natural. Like, we don't have to have, oh my gosh, the secret. Like, yeah, this is a world that's been lived in. We've seen the world like this, we've seen that there are superpowers here, so there are going to probably be origin stories in this DCU, but I think they're like people like have used to it, so that's why people are just like, whatever, and they have take care of that, because especially the electricity brothers that came in and they got dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I mean. I think that's going to be very that's going to be in the future. But the one thing I think that I did not like is the season finale. I felt like if this show had like maybe 3 more or 4 more episodes, it would have been much better. But this is the problem when you have only 7 episodes. It's just they felt like it was just everything felt like it was rushed. You know, it was like
I can,
yeah.
yeah, I can agree with you on that one. I honestly didn't realize that was the season ending. I thought it's like I felt like I was like, wait, there's not an episode 8. It like literally felt like they just stopped at an episode early.
Yeah, that's the problem with these streaming shows, though. It's like once there's starting to be a really good like flow, it's like, all right, that's it. See you in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, this was DC and James Gunn just getting a taste of the awesomeness that's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Peacemaker 2 will probably bring up some of this stuff too. So I have a feeling like this is more leading into Peacemaker 2.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be one out and basically say I actually felt that this was a pretty good, well-paced season for the most part. I think 7 episodes may be short, but I think the fact that they were able to tell the entire story within that runtime, with both the main storyline and the backstories, I thought that was pretty good because, again, pretty much every episode has a backstory to each of the characters, so it makes sense that there would be a certain number of it. And again, I felt it was. And for me, I felt it was kind of well paced because, as much as I would like to see more of something, if a series goes on a little bit too long than it needs to, it can basically feel like the opposite. It feels like it's kind of dragging on. But I felt this was, for the most part, managed to tell the story what it needed to. And the 7th one, oh my goodness, that was just a really good ending. I know you probably thought, oh wait, this was an ending. It definitely felt like a pretty good ending, especially at the very end, where it reveals that not only was there a plot twist, but there was a plot twist within a plot twist, if you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to give any spoilers here, but it kind of turns out that the twist was actually... actually things were exactly as they seemed. But the way that they basically pulled that off, it's like, oh, wow, that definitely took me out. I don't know if any of you guys saw that coming, but I definitely did not. So
yeah, it showed the princess being a lot more manipulative the entire time, which does, I'm surprised they did that, because I wish, like I will say, I truly wish this had like maybe the episode was a little bit longer and had time to breathe, time to actually do something. I think that would have been much better. But overall, I really did enjoy the series. I enjoyed it, and it just, my hope is that they can expand on that with season 2. Because I think there is some interesting things in the Vision that was like, they showed how everything happened. But, the person was there, the flashback and everything else, the Vision was not just Cersei there. It was, who's the Flash villain who was there? Gorilla Grodd.
Yeah, Rog.
So if that was just maybe she was like a patsy to his plan, because if I want to do a whole saga based on a monster, the gods and monsters, I'm like, as a big bad, Gorilla Grodd is not a bad choice,
I honestly, if I could go in there, I'm just gonna say it's like I think Grog will be important later, but I have a feeling Brainiac's gonna be the main big bad villain of the overarching storyline.
I don't.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna agree. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you guys. This was definitely a good animated show. I mean, I'd even go out and say that it's even better than X-Men 97, and I only say that because, well, I admit X-Men 97 was good. I just was never a big X-Men animated series fan. I know, heresy, right? I admit it was good, but this I definitely admit was better, and the only thing preventing me from saying that Creature Commandos was the best animated show of the year was that Delicious in Dungeon exists. So, yeah, Delicious Dungeon, best anime of the year, so, in my opinion. But, yeah, this is a close second, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, I think comparing to most of it, I think the reason why I think X-Men 97 and this stuff worked because there's people behind the scenes really care about the source material and really cared about the stuff here. And I think that's the end of the day that you need to find. People that care. People that really care and they loved it and they treat it as its own thing. And I can't wait to see what's going to be like that in the future. It looks like it's going to be a very interesting thing coming down the pike.
Hey, it all comes down to having the right creative people, which I believe they have right now. I can't wait to see what else has come. And hopefully not too much studio inferior. What's the word I'm thinking of? Influence. Interference. Studio interference is more of what I'm afraid of. Because let's face it, as soon as things start making money, that's as soon as the studio goes, no, do more of that. And then next, you get convoluted stories with 1,000 characters because everyone wants Cameo Fest, and everything else. But overall, it's like, sorry, I'm just going to go back a topic. It's, I'm going to say it's been absolutely great. I love the Easter eggs, too. I don't know if you guys noticed. Do you guys remember the Bride and Frankenstein scene when they were at Woodstock?
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
Oh,
did you notice? Yeah, they had Shaggy back there smoking weed, which is which is one, Warner Brothers, awesome, but two, what was James Gunn's first commercial film?
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, I think it's everyone else is.
So,
that's what it is. It's relaxed. I think people just need to. I think this is going to be, a little love there. So I think, like I said, it's in DC's in good hands. I mean, the Superman trailer looked really good.
Yeah.
It looked, I look in the future. I saw Superman trailer. Looks really nice. I wonder what type of stuff they're going to, put in the stuff here. And then, Clayface is there. I think Supergirl Woman's Tomorrow looked like it's going to be a very interesting thing. And we did have Lanterns look to be really good too. I think they're working and doing. I think they're in pre-production or they're in production now. They gotta make sure. Are they in pre-production and everything else? Because I think they're in, that sort of stuff. So I think that's what they're on now. So I think the TV series to Lanterns, I think they're in pre-production. So hopefully will be released next year. So hopefully they all take their time. I expect that they're going to take their time with these shows. Let them cook. And unlike Marvel, where they're just rushing everything, I think that will probably be the best solution for that, and I think it's the best way to show the differences for Marvel and DC is that they wait and let the artists actually have their world, because they wanted to be like, say, Star Wars, saying you can take each time frame and everything else and have them be, you can have them connect, but they all stand by themselves, and I think that's what they should be. What they should do is that these things connect to they do connect to the bigger world, but they do like say, hey, we're just here going to make a you can watch these on their own and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to do any homework.
Yeah, I think that's what I really appreciate about James Gunn's, direction as far as this cinematic universe goes, because I remember the interview that he did, and people were asking, is this going to be a continuation of the DCEU, or is this going to be a reboot? And his answer was pretty much, Yes, and he basically blatantly states out that anything that can be canon is canon. Everything's canon. So he obviously has a very flexible attitude towards this cinematic universe that he's helming, and that he's going to basically make what's going to make, and he's not going to be too worried about canon and continuity. And not that that's a bad thing. I mean, the MCU was pretty good with that, but if you have to differentiate yourself from the MCU, rather than do what Snyder did and just make everything dark and edgy, just do what James Gunn is doing and just do it for the heck of it. Don't worry about continuity. Don't worry about a big game plan. Just make good movies, and people will enjoy that. That's and I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, that's what I agree as well. And I think that's something we all agree on, because I think you can do a way of making the shows better, a way of making them as a differentiated possible, and hopefully when DC does get the stuff and you really have that trust again, not just with the Creature Commandos, not just with Peacemaker and stuff, but like I said, with shows like Lanterns and the shows like the TV stuff on Max, but also Superman. Then you have Women of Tomorrow, then Clayface, and you have to do The Authority as well. You have to build up trust again. And I think DC needs to build up the trust. And with shows like Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, and stuff like that, I think it's going to come out, because if you have trust, you will be at a much more positive place. That's what I feel like.
Trust and not oversaturating. Mm-hmm. That's going to be the fun part of this. It's that in a battle between DC and Marvel, like DC has to both do offense and defense at the same time, because they have to make sure they get their content out, but they also got to make sure that they're not throwing it out at the same time Marvel is doing something that is going to burn people out. So it's going to be very interesting to how they balance that release schedule coming up. Because let's face it, they know they're not going to put them up against Marvel films. They're not. That's just stupid business to try to put it up against a Marvel film. But you also don't want to put it out around, you don't want to put it out too soon after a Marvel film or before a Marvel film, because then you get the superhero fatigue. So it's going to be a great balancing act for their marketing and release team.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a very interesting time, and honestly, overall though, like I said, I believe when you look at this as the first foray, the official foray into the DCU, I think Creature Commandos did a really good job. So this is for the first chapter 1 of Gods and Monsters. I believe James Gunn actually, did a really good job of getting into this world. And the next up is Superman.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see if they can do him right, because we all know that Superman can either be extremely good or extremely bad. It all depends on who's in charge of it.
And looking like what they did in the trailer, and then Crypto coming out, which is probably going to, everyone's going to love Crypto, which,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what's going to be. Yeah. Who doesn't love Crypto at that point?
Yeah. If you have a problem with crypto, I want to meet you. Just for a conversation.
Oh man. Anyway, that's it for the little podcast here. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, thank you so much for JC and Great Kuma for spending a little time with me and doing all this stuff here. Thank you again.
Well, thank you. It was definitely a pleasure. Yes.
It was very interesting. Very fun and time for all of us and for all this and nice conversation.
Oh yeah.
And
I like Duke. Thank you again for having me on. I know I'm a bit of a grandfather of the internet at this point, but I appreciate you bringing me on so I can try to get my mic skills back up to par.
And JC, you do really fun videos. And I'm for you, man. And I can't wait to hear the next stuff coming up. Thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, it was certainly a pleasure. First time doing this, but I was a bit nervous about how well I would do, and turns out I did a little bit better than I thought I would. And in case anyone's curious, yes, I do video reviews. I have a bunch of reviews of cartoons and stuff on my channel, JC Alexander Writes. Go ahead and check that out. And if you're also into good storytelling like I am, I also write a bunch of fantasy stories. The Light Prince, my main novel is Light Prince Grail. You can check that out at jcalexanderwrites.com, just in case, a little bit of a plug there. So shameless plug there. So, but otherwise, yeah, this was definitely, it was a pleasure being able to be on here to talk about a really good show.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us as well. Peace and love. I will see y'all when I see y'all later.